Discover the touching moment a little girl's invitation transformed a lonely CEO's life forever. Jack Thompson, the celebrated CEO of a tech startup in San Francisco, stood atop a glass mountain of success, yet the view was hollow. Outside, people admired his accomplishments, the sleek office, the accolades, the luxury cars parked in his driveway. But inside, it was an entirely different story. Loneliness seeped through his life like an uninvited guest. High-stakes meetings filled his calendar, and financial reports were his constant companions. He was the maestro of innovation, a puppet master of productivity, yet no one to share it with. He longed for connections, reminiscing about family gatherings filled with laughter long gone as the relentless grind of ambition pushed everyone away. On a crisp Saturday afternoon, when the urgency of deadlines faded momentarily, Jack allowed himself a rare escape. He wandered into a park, where laughter floated through the air, mingling with the scent of fresh grass. It was here that he met Emma, a little girl whose spirit bounced off her like sunlight. With a mischievous grin, she approached him, unfiltered and utterly sincere. "You should come to my birthday party. Everyone deserves friends." Jack's heart sank. The invitation echoed, and for a brief moment, he faced a moral dilemma. He was a business leader, not a friend. But there was something about Emma's earnestness that clawed at the fortress he had built around his isolation. The thought of declining felt heavier than the weight of acceptance, so he found himself nodding, drawn into her innocent world. Days later, the party buzzed to life, alive with joy, and Jack stood awkwardly on the perimeter. The bright colors of balloons danced in the wind, and the sugary scent of cake coiled around him, yet he felt out of place. As he withdrew into a shell of silence, he observed Emma, surrounded by her giggling friends, their laughter ringing like a forgotten melody that once filled his own childhood. Slowly he found himself participating, caught in the infectious energy of the games. It felt foreign, that warmth, that camaraderie. It wasn't ambition but genuine connection. Emma's eyes sparkled with dreams of becoming an engineer, igniting something within him that had lain dormant for years. But as the final hour approached, anguish replaced the warmth. Jack felt a tightness in his chest as he realized he had to return to his solitary life, the ruthless corporate world that awaited him like a cold embrace. The laughter of children faded to echoes of his past, and with it came the realization that he could either dive back into the isolating pursuit of success or seek something more enduring. The weight of Emma's card in his pocket grew heavier, a simple thank you rooted in gratitude, now a symbol of his responsibility. Before he could spiral deeper into this storm of thoughts, his phone vibrated violently against the table. It was his assistant, her voice trembling as she broke news he feared. A major investor was pulling out, threatening everything he had built. Time was ticking, stealing the breath from his lungs. The panic swirled within as he grappled with desperate thoughts. Could he handle the chaos of investors breathing down his neck while wrestling with the longing for something profoundly human? Would he choose the stark, ruthless world of business or the vulnerability that came with forging connections? As the realization set in, Jack stood torn, the weight of his corporate identity warring against the flicker of hope Emma had ignited. Jack stared out of the office window, the sprawling city twinkling like 1,000 stars trapped within steel and glass. The world outside thrived with connections, dialogues, and moments shared under the expansive sky, while his life felt confined to a dimly lit cubicle where ambition suffocated any traces of joy. A plethora of emails awaited his response, but they felt like chains binding him to the brink of burnout. Emma's birthday party, the laughter, the carefree spirit haunted him like an uninvited specter on the edges of his consciousness. In that moment, the implications of losing a significant investor jostled uncomfortably in his mind. Anxieties wrestled for dominance, each thought vying for attention. He could already hear the raised voices in the boardroom, the countdown ticking toward inevitable chaos. Jack took a deep breath, the air heavy with distraction. Could this be the moment to redefine his priorities? Perhaps it was time to pivot away from a singular focus on profit margins and adjust course to nurture the connections he had neglected. This realization struck him as he recalled Emma's innocent laughter. What if the real measure of success extended beyond the quarterly reports he haunted? It lay in relationships, nurturing budding ideas, and embracing vulnerability. This internal conflict brewed like a storm, demanding resolution. Standing at the precipice of a new perspective, he questioned the very core of his existence. Was he merely a figurehead in an empire of his own making, or could he transcend a role limited by the corporate grind? He swiftly grabbed his jacket and dialed his assistant. "Cancel all my meetings for the rest of the day." The certainty in his voice surprised him. She hesitated for a breath, but he continued, "I need to deal with a personal matter." The instant relief that washed over him propelled him forward into the unknown, spurred on by an urge to reclaim the humanity he had buried beneath spreadsheets and forecasts. As he exited the building, the coarse city air bit at him, a stark contrast to the sterile environment of glass walls. He didn't have a plan, just a need to act, to experience. His legs carried him toward the park, where memories danced on the edge of his subconscious. What if he could embrace a different path? Upon arrival, he sought out Emma amidst the remnants of her birthday festivities. She was there, happily chatting with her friends, the remnants of icing smeared on her cheeks. Driven by spontaneity, Jack approached, his heart pounding with uncertainty. "Hey, Emma!" he called, the childlike excitement in her eyes contagious. "Jack! Did you bring me a gift?" she exclaimed, a grin spreading across her face. "No, not today," he chuckled, then took a beat. "I have something better." There was an honesty piercing through his words, a realization that the greatest present he could offer transcended material value. "Can I show you something?" Jack asked, surprising even himself with this impulse. Perhaps it was a playful retreat from his corporate throne, a chance to engage in something authentic. Emma nodded eagerly, and with that small gesture, Jack took a step toward transforming his detached existence into one richer with human interaction. As they ventured into a game of tag with the other children, his initial fear began to dissipate, replaced by a puzzling sense of belonging. Laughter erupted around him, infectious and freeing, loosening the grip of professional isolation. He felt the wall begin to come down, not just between him and the children, but within himself. For the first time, he began to recognize how interconnected success and personal fulfillment could truly be. Yet, even in this joyful moment, unease lingered. Would embracing this path bring about chaos in his business world? Was he ready to confront the reactions of his investors and employees, or would he retreat once again to the solitary glass tower? The thrill of uncertainty sparked a fierce determination within him. Jack was ready to confront the new world blossoming before him, and the choices waiting to be made loomed large. The stakes had never been higher. So he caught Emma's eye, a mischievous smirk spreading across his face, and in that instant, everything changed. He was no longer just Jack, the CEO. He was a man rediscovering the vibrancy of life, and the time had come to confront the big questions. Could he harness this moment of clarity to drive both his personal connections and his business forward? Jack's laughter mingled with the children's shrieks, a new sound that felt foreign yet exhilarating. He chased Emma and her friends, each step resounding with a rhythm that had long been absent from his life. The playground felt like a canvas where colors of joy splashed vibrantly, contrasting the grayscale monotony of his office. Yet as the thrill of the moment washed over him, the lurking shadows of doubt began to stir again. What would he say when he returned to the polished boardroom? The stinging reprimands of investors danced like phantoms in his mind. They wouldn't understand this shift. They worshipped the metrics, the hard data. Here, among the laughter, was a world where values transcended numbers. But could he bridge these two realms without losing himself to one extreme or the other? After what felt like hours of blissful play, Emma tugged at Jack's sleeve. "Can we get ice cream now? Please?" "Sure, let us go." He wanted to cling to this moment, but as they strolled toward the kiosk, a tighter knot of anxiety formed in his chest. Jack's mind spun in a whirlwind of calculations, every cone and scoop added to the cost he was constantly under scrutiny for. It distracted him from the spontaneous joy that surrounded him. Would he have to put a limit on fun, applying the same rules he had learned in the unforgiving corporate arena? "What's wrong, Jack? You look all serious," Emma said, glancing up at him with wide, innocent eyes. Her candid question struck a nerve, illuminating the disconnect he felt within himself. Just thinking about some boring adult stuff, Emma. Boring? She echoed, scrunching her nose in disbelief. But adults get to have fun. You can play, too. Her words were undeniably true. Did adulthood have to be synonymous with burden? He suddenly realized how rejecting this distinct yet suffocating two-dimensional existence could lead to entirely new dimensions of his being. Maybe didn't have to compartmentalize every aspect of life. What if he could incorporate the passport of joy he had just discovered into his professional realm? With ice cream in hand, they returned to the park bench, and Jack watched Emma devour her treat, her cheeks smeared with chocolate. A laughter burst from him, unexpected yet refreshing. He felt renewed, liberated from old expectations. Yet beneath the surface, he sensed a developing anger toward himself for allowing the relentless grind to take priority for so long, and strip away the colorful essence of being human. Was he really willing to fight this battle for happiness? As the sun dipped toward the horizon, the shadows learned to stretch across the park, and Jack's heart raced. Facing his investors wasn't merely a financial strategy, it was an emotional confrontation, a stand to redefine his values. The industry was changing, after all. He could lead the charge towards a paradigm shift favoring connection over profit. With clarity anchoring his resolve, he understood that he had not just helped Emma reclaim the joy of childhood, she had unknowingly transformed him, challenging him to tear down the walls he had built around his own heart. Emma, he said, meeting her gaze determinedly, thank you for today. You've given me something priceless. Really? Like a unicorn? She asked, laughter bubbling up. Something even better. A chance to be myself. As they finished their ice cream, a thrill of possibilities ignited within him. Jack realized that embracing both joy and resilience could change everything from his personal life to how he steered his company. He might not have all the answers yet, but he was ready for the challenges ahead. A sudden resolve stung his senses. Tomorrow, he would face the board and unveil a vision crafted from both laughter and discipline. But even as he felt emboldened, another undeniable truth gripped him. Would they accept this transformed vision, or would it drown in the relentless demands of profitability? The moment to take a stand had arrived, and for Jack, it was now or never. With newfound courage, he prepared to face the reality of an uncertain future, a separate arena that now delighted and terrified him equally. As the sun set, painting the sky with strokes of orange and pink, Jack re-entered his home, the echoes of laughter still resonating in his mind. The cozy atmosphere felt foreign after the overwhelming experience at the playground. Flipping on the lights, he felt the weight of his decision settling back on his shoulders. The office space was devoid of laughter, its sterile ambience contrasting starkly with the vibrant energy he had just left behind. He needed to prepare for the next day's board meeting, yet the thought of addressing his colleagues filled him with a mix of excitement and dread. The vision he had formulated during the insatiable moments with Emma surged through his veins, urging him to act. But would those around him share in his quest for change? Sitting at his kitchen table, Jack pulled out his laptop and began drafting his pitch. He envisioned not just profit metrics but stories of how the company could resonate with customers on a more profound level. Each slide he created felt like a brushstroke on a canvas, layering the narrative of connection atop the strict numbers that had previously dominated his presentations. He rummaged through his ideas, abandoning the numbers for the narratives, the heartbeats behind the data. As the clock ticked into the night, each decision became seemingly monumental. Should he risk his position for the possibility of a more fulfilling corporate culture? The stakes were higher than ever, yet the thrill of authenticity pulled him forward. He couldn't ignore that instinct. It was the same instinct that had leapt to the forefront during those carefree moments with Emma. The contrast between the two worlds sharpened, reminding him of everything he stood to gain or lose. Minutes melted into hours, and the deeper he delved into his presentation, the more he questioned what kind of leader he wanted to be. A sinking feeling beckoned him. Would a vision centered on empathy and connection warrant respect among the cold logic of his peers? Could he truly forge a company ethos that valued humanity and profit equally? Stopping momentarily, Jack stared at the walls of his home office, reflecting on the confines he had constructed over the years. He had created a life that emphasized results over relationships. His principles dictated performance over personal fulfillment, and he'd let the corporate grind erase the very essence of what it meant to be human. Yet here he was, on the brink of a new chapter, realizing that either path he chose could dictate his legacy. He closed his laptop and leaned back in his chair, battling conflicting emotions. Should he dig further into the figures, the projections, the industry benchmarks that had once felt so intoxicating? Or should he embrace his humanity and challenge those around him to do the same? With a deep breath, Jack resolved to weave an authentic narrative into his pitch, a balance of heart and numbers that would convey an urgent necessity for a shift in culture. He craved an environment where innovation stemmed not only from intellect but also from connection and understanding. The next morning, as he dressed for the meeting, Jack's heart raced. Each piece of clothing felt like armor for the battle ahead. Anxiety coursed through him, but it was intertwined with an invigorating anticipation. This wasn't just about achieving success anymore. It was about forging a new path, both for himself and for his company. Arriving at the boardroom, he took a moment to center himself before entering. Would they resist his vision? The risks he was willing to take hung heavy in the air. Jack stepped through the door, gripping his notes, his heart a palpable drumbeat of uncertainty. The time had come to face his colleagues and the question that loomed larger than any financial forecast. Would they embrace the realities of a deeper connection, or would the metrics maintain their chokehold? As he looked around the table at the faces of the board, an unfamiliar resolve washed over him. It wasn't merely a corporate strategy, it was a fight for the authenticity he had nearly forgotten. The first words hung in the air like a spark awaiting ignition, and as he began to speak, he realized this was just the beginning of a very different journey. Would they accept his transformative vision, or would it simply be another day of business as usual? Jack's voice echoed against the polished walls of the boardroom, an uncertain yet determined sound that wove through the lingering silence. As his words began to unfold, he immediately sensed the shifting dynamics of the room. Some members sat rigid, arms crossed defensively, while others leaned forward, subtly intrigued. "I believe we're at a crossroads," he stated, his tone steady. "The market is changing, and with it, our need to connect with our customers on a level beyond transactions." He saw a flicker of recognition among a few of his colleagues, but the prevailing skepticism remained palpable. The tight-lipped disapproval from the board chair weighed heavily upon him. Avery's expression was a mixture of confusion and discontent, as if Jack had thrown a curveball in a game where only calculations mattered. Jack took a breath, the air thick with apprehension, and pressed on. "Imagine a culture built on collaboration, where empathy informs our strategy and customer experience is driven by meaningful relationships. Our metrics will improve not just because we've adjusted figures, but because we've nurtured our connections." As he flipped through the slides he had painstakingly designed, detailing statistics and successful case studies from companies that had embraced this approach, he could feel his resolve strengthening. Each example he shared had a heartbeat. Each narrative showcased how profitability could coexist with purpose. Yet, the room's temperature felt stagnant, as if the walls themselves were barricading his ambition. "We're not just selling products, we're selling ourselves," he added, injecting a sense of urgency. "When we value people, employees, clients, and our communities, we foster loyalty, creativity, and innovation. That's what will lead us into the future." But skepticism didn't easily dissipate. Avery shot him a pointed look. "With respect, Jack, what you're proposing sounds far too idealistic for our current market climate. How can we afford to prioritize emotional connections when we're under pressure to deliver quarterly results?" The question stung, piercing through Jack's heartfelt appeal. A seed of doubt sprouted in his mind, gnawing at his confidence. Was he being naive? But beneath that doubt lay a burgeoning defiance. He had experienced firsthand the vitality that connection could inspire. It wasn't merely a philosophical idea, it was a tangible necessity. "We can't afford not to," Jack countered, his tone firmer. "Our competitors might still thrive on cold metrics, but that doesn't make it sustainable. This isn't just about numbers, it's about our identity and the culture we're building. Are we a corporation that simply chases profit, or are we a legacy that seeks to uplift?" The shift in mood was subtle, yet palpable. A faint murmur started among board members, glances exchanged, some nodding slightly as if awakening from a trance. Jack recognized that they were beginning to wrestle with the implications of his proposition. The tension in the room was transforming, making way for conversation rather than confrontation. Feeling the flicker of possibility, he pressed on. Let us start a movement, one where every employee feels empowered to bring their whole selves to work. We can craft a company that isn't afraid to take risks, that fosters innovation born from authenticity. Picture our brand being a beacon of hope and trust in an otherwise transactional world. As Jack wrapped up his presentation, he felt something unfurl within him. This felt less like a pitch and more like a rallying cry. His colleagues began to look at each other with renewed curiosity, contemplating the venture that awaited. But even as the initial sparks ignited curiosity, Jack knew the road ahead was fraught with dissent. The board's ultimate decision loomed like a thunderstorm on the horizon. He felt an urgency to fortify this momentum, to push past the barriers that would inevitably resist change. Thank you for your attention, he concluded. I'm open to your thoughts and questions, but more importantly, I want us to consider the kind of legacy we want to create here. As the board members began to express their hesitations, Jack felt a rush of adrenaline mingling with resolve. This was just the beginning of his transformation, a choice to lead with authenticity rather than fear. And yet, in the back of his mind lingered a dark question. If they rejected his vision, would he still have the courage to push forward alone? With the board's reaction still swirling in his thoughts, he realized a new challenge was surfacing within him, navigating the delicate balance between ambition and acceptance. Would he be brave enough to stand alone for his beliefs, or would he conform to their discontent? As the tension thickened in the room, Jack teetered on the brink of self-discovery, knowing he must hold fast to his convictions even if faced with adversity. What would he choose, and what would it cost him? Jack stepped out of the boardroom, his heart pounding and pulse racing. The sterile environment felt suffocating. The polished floors reflected not just light but the weight of the decisions yet to be made. He needed to process what had just happened, but his mind buzzed with unfiltered thoughts and conflicting emotions. The discussions had ignited a phoenix of determination within him, but that same fire brought with it the threat of isolation. As he leaned against the wall of the corridor, gazing out the glass window that framed the sprawling city below, doubt crept in. Could he truly pioneer such a significant cultural shift, even if the leadership refused to follow? His intuition screamed against conformity, yet each moment spent contemplating the board's pushback felt like unraveling a tightly knit sweater. Jack couldn't afford to lose his footing. He had weathered so many storms, his resilience born from forging his own path. But now, leadership didn't just mean steering the ship. It involved nurturing the very fabric of the organization. In that moment of reflection, he recalled the stories of those who had pioneered change in the face of inertia. Steve Jobs, with his vision of innovation, Oprah Winfrey, dedicated to uplifting others. Their journeys had not been linear, each faced rejection and yet found the courage to persist. Drawing from these lessons, Jack could no longer afford to retreat into the shadows of complacency. Carrying this invigorated resolve, he decided to reach out to his team. The collective would fortify his vision, and together they could confront the bureaucracy that threatened to stifle potential. He envisioned a strategy session set up among his closest colleagues, individuals who shared a pulse for transformation. At his desk, as he began crafting an invitation for input, he felt a wave of refreshment wash over him. This was different. Instead of coming across as a mere directive, Jack decided to invite them to be co-creators of the journey. Let us consider how we can challenge the current narrative together, he wrote, his fingers flying over the keyboard, and explore avenues that cultivate a culture based on connection rather than transactions. As he hit send on the email, a trickle of hope pulsed through him. This could be a defining moment. His team's engagement might not only showcase support but also present an array of diverse ideas that could strengthen his argument when the board reconvened. Each voice mattered, each perspective could be a catalyst for change. Days passed, and as he awaited their responses, Jack braced himself for the potential backlash. Would they feel emboldened to speak out, or would fear hold them back? The momentum of his initiative could crumble under pressure without honest dialogue. When the meeting day arrived, the conference room buzzed with a sense of possibility. Each team member brought their own energy into the space, inspired by Jack's call to action. Conversations flowed like a spring thaw, snow turning to rivers. Ideas shifted and morphed, coalescing into a vision that was richer than Jack had initially imagined. They created trust through vulnerability, each suggestion weaving a stronger bond. Yet, as he observed the robust discussions unfold, a prickle of anxiety lingered in Jack's lower abdomen. What if they collectively endeavored to implement their vision, only to be met with the same skepticism he had experienced? Feeling the uncertainty curl tightly around his convictions, he realized he needed to be more than a leader. He had to be a champion for their shared vision. He needed to steel himself for potential rejection, understanding that perseverance often required solitude. The meeting concluded with sparks of creativity, their ideas bubbling over as they left the room. But an unsettling truth hit Jack like a tidal wave. He had to prepare to confront the board again. This next meeting could define their futures. He was ready to dive once more into the fray, but a new awareness flickered in the back of his mind. What was the true cost of standing firm in his beliefs? Could he transform not just the company, but perhaps something even more personal within himself along the way? As the reality of his decision loomed ahead, Jack resolved to face both the board and his own internal struggles. The stakes were higher than ever, and he would need to muster all the courage he could find to embrace what lay ahead. Would he be able to navigate these murky waters unscathed, or would new dilemmas reveal the depth of his convictions and their potential costs? Jack paced his office, the faint hum of the city seeping through the windows. The excitement from the team meeting had given way to a weighty silence, pressing on him like an anvil. The insights generated were compelling, but the specter of the board loomed large. Could his passion translate into action? He felt the insistent drum of questions. Was he ready to be the beacon of change that the organization needed? With each tick of the clock, Jack grappled with a gnawing sense of impending confrontation. He had ignited a spark among his team, but could that energy withstand the cold logic of business suits? After all, change was often met with resistance, especially from those who thrived in the comfort of the status quo. A quick glance at his reflection in the glass reminded him of the now familiar line around his eyes. Doubt had taken root. But it also fueled something deeper, a yearning for authenticity to align his professional role with the values he cherished. Jack could not simply advocate for change. He needed to embody it. He reached for his notepad, flipping past pages of scribbled thoughts until he landed on a section marked Personal Values. Leading with integrity was paramount. What if he used this opportunity not just to present a plan, but to share his own journey, the challenges he faced, the reasons why he believed transformation was essential? Would vulnerability disarm skepticism? In an effort to align his emotions with strategy, Jack outlined a narrative that spoke not only to the company's goals but to the hearts of his listeners. It should be less about the data and graphs that showcase trends and growth, and more about the story of its people, of him. The changes he proposed were not mere adjustments, but reflections of the vision he now saw so clearly. As the meeting with the board approached, Jack found himself oscillating between nerves and determination. He gathered resources, framed data, and arranged anecdotes that highlighted the power of collective belief, all while stressing the need for genuine connection. Each detail fortified the bridge he hoped to build with the board. The day of the meeting arrived, and he could feel the tension in the air as he stepped into the boardroom. Their stares fell on him like a series of pressure points, needles pricking at the fragile fabric of his confidence. He approached the podium with the sway of a tightrope walker, balancing on the precipice between hope and fear. Today, he began, voice steadying as he made eye contact with each board member, I am here not just to present a proposal, but to share a vision that reflects who we are as innovators and change makers in this industry. The warmth of his conviction smothered the chill of doubt that wrapped around him. As he spoke of his team's input, the energy in the room shifted. He laid bare the reality that was the crux of their motivations, the shared goal of fostering a workplace that thrived on trust and connection. He wove in his own tales of struggle, of grappling with doubt yet finding strength in vulnerability. Yet, just as he felt the rhythm of acceptance, a voice broke through, a senior member questioning the practicality of his ideas against their current fiscal realities. The challenge shook him. It was not a simple dismissal but a layered critique that cut to the core of his convictions. Jack's heart raced as he fought to maintain composure. In that moment, he realized that overcoming opposition required not just convictions but adaptability. He needed to challenge the naysayers, to confront the idea that growth was purely numerical. Turning the critique into a discussion, he leaned back into the openness he'd cultivated with his team. What if instead of seeing this as a departure from our current trajectory, we view it as an evolution increasing not just our bottom line, but our impact? Can we risk the comfort of today for the promise of tomorrow? The board shifted, whispers exchanged like currency. Would they accept this new paradigm? As the meeting wore on, Jack felt a flicker of belief coursing through him. He was more than just a leader, he was a steward of potential. Yet with each question, the stakes inched higher. Would this confrontation be the crucible he needed, or would it expose his vulnerabilities too? As he took a breath, letting silence hang weighty before him, a thought crystallized. This was not just about change, it was about embracing the unknown, risking failure to forge a renewed path. But what if he miscalculated? What if his personal journey and belief were not enough to sway the board's decision? In that moment, the tension crackled in the air like electricity, a breathless anticipation of what was yet to unfold. Jack braced himself to press on, the choice to bolster his resolve becoming more vital than ever. The defense of their collective vision hinged on this moment, and he could not turn back now. Would he ultimately succeed in transforming not just the company, but the very essence of his leadership? The choice lay before him, one that would not only test his tenacity but reveal the depths of his character in the face of adversity. Jack's breath hitched, suspended in the boardroom's heavy atmosphere like a fragile filament holding back the storm. The gazes of the board members bore down on him, a blend of skepticism and curiosity. Despite the tension threading through the room, a spark ignited within him. He realized he was not merely defending a proposal, he was advocating for a transformation of culture and values. Every journey begins with a single step, he declared, feeling a surge of confidence coursing through him. What if we commit to taking that step together? A step into a future that embraces our shared humanity? It's not just about profit margins, it's about belonging. About value not only in dollars but in the impact we make. The initial query about practicality had rattled him, but Jack now saw an opportunity to reframe the conversation. He shifted from defending his vision to elevating it. Presenting charts and graphs felt futile against the emotional tide he sought to harness. What if, he continued, his eyes scanning the room, we redefine success? Perspective is key. Instead of seeing potential losses, let us envision opportunities for innovation and growth within our teams. Imagine a workforce invigorated by purpose. He gestured toward a chart that showed previous successful initiatives, transformations that yielded both engagement and profit. These shifts weren't just numbers. They were about culture. About recognizing our employees not as assets, but as vital parts of a living, breathing entity. Slowly, he saw a shift among the board members. Cautious nods replaced blank stares, and he felt their collective pulse quicken. There was an engagement unfolding, a subtle exchange of ideas. Encouraged, Jack pressed further, sharing a story from his own path, the struggles within his career that mirrored their current limbo. When I faced similar decisions early on, I hesitated, he admitted. It felt safer to cling to the familiar, but I learned that real growth comes from embracing the discomfort, from being willing to take risks on ourselves and each other. What if we dared to trust that every challenge can be a catalyst for connection and purpose? The room buzzed with murmurs, some leaning toward one another, engaging in whispered deliberations. Jack's heart raced, a heartbeat amplifying the realization that he was no longer standing alone. He was inviting them into a conversation. Even those most resistant to his vision could become allies. Yet, just as Jack felt momentum building, another voice rose, louder this time. It was the board chair, a formidable figure known for her steely demeanor. Change requires more than inspiration. We need concrete metrics, Jack. Show us how you plan to evaluate these so-called improvements. The challenge rattled him. He paradoxically shielded himself with emotional narratives, inadvertently neglecting the very foundation the board thrived on: measurable outcomes. Hesitation flickered behind his confidence. Had he misjudged the environment? Drawing a deep breath, Jack steadied himself. What if we co-create those metrics? He proposed, calming his racing thoughts. We can involve our teams in defining success not solely through numbers but through satisfaction, engagement, and retention. His voice surged with conviction as he imagined this collaboration brewing new solutions with the very people they aim to inspire. Let us frame this as a joint venture, where success is both qualitative and quantitative. Together we can develop a set of criteria that reflect our culture and financial goals. Suddenly, a sense of clarity emerged from the whirlwind of confusion. Jack recognized that adaptability was not just critical for the organization, it was also crucial for him as a leader. This pivotal moment was calling him to commune with both sides of the argument. The emotional heart and the analytical mind. As voices coalesced again, Jack felt an awakening of possibilities, yet the unease of uncertainty lingered. He had ventured into a new territory, one where his professional development was closely intertwined with risking vulnerability and embracing feedback. The reality of his own leadership style hung in the balance. Would he emerge as a respected advocate for change, or would complacency lay siege to his vision? A sudden spark of doubt nagged at him as the board continued to deliberate. Is it too late for me to establish a more solid foundation? The question prickled at his resolve. Conscious of the moment slipping away, Jack gathered himself for the final stretch. The board's decision loomed large before him. Would their collaborative exploration yield the trust he needed to inspire change? The air crackled with anticipation as he prepared to confront not just their doubts but his own. The tension was palpable, and as he took a step forward, his mind raced with new strategies and insights. But this was merely the beginning. The outcome of this critical meeting could set the trajectory not only for the company but for Jack's own evolution as a leader. Would he discover the courage to lead with both heart and intellect, or would he falter before the challenge? With a steadying breath, he braced for the board's verdict, realizing this moment would determine whether he would emerge transformed or something else entirely. Everything would change in the blink of an eye, especially for him. But would he seize the opportunity, or let it slip away into the void of mischances? The boardroom fell silent, weighing Jack's proposal against the backdrop of expectations. As he stood on the precipice of pivotal change, an unsettling fluidity coursed through him, an amalgamation of anxiety and eager anticipation. The moments dragged on, each tick of the clock amplifying a pulse of uncertainty. Finally, the chair spoke, her tone firm but laced with curiosity. Jack, your vision holds merit. Co-creating success resonates. But can we strategize it to demonstrate clear accountability? What does that look like in practical terms? The question tethered him momentarily, and Jack realized that the solidity he craved hinged on specifics. The path to enlightenment was about a clear route forward anchored in accountability. He visualized a roadmap to collective success but knew it needed to be both ambitious and tangible. We could initiate a pilot program, he proposed, feeling new determination surge through him. Let us select a small team to experiment with the metrics we outlined together. We can track their engagement scores, innovation outputs, even employee retention data parsed through a qualitative lens. We will create a living model of change that we can scale. His words sparked interest, and the nods from across the table increased. There was the momentum he had sought, the glimmer of possibility shining beneath the layers of doubt. His heart raced, each beat echoing the resonance of clarity in his thoughts. Yet, as the board members discussed, Jack couldn't escape the gnawing voice that questioned his authority. Was he genuinely equipped to lead such substantial cultural reform? His past hesitations whispered ever louder, beckoning him to second-guess each moment. What made him capable of wielding influence over others' lives and careers? The stakes were no longer just numbers or profits. They were lives entwined in a complex tapestry striving for meaning. In the midst of his contemplation, he caught sight of Emma, the young intern who'd recently joined the team. Her face radiated hope and determination, a reflection of his own resolve echoing back. Perhaps he have to shoulder this burden alone. The vitality and passion of the younger generation could fuel his effort. Just then, a voice broke through his reverie. The head of marketing, an ally thus far, was challenging Jack's approach. But Jack, how do we quantify the emotional impacts you're advocating? Can feelings be put on a spreadsheet? A challenge, to be sure, but Jack sensed opportunity. Metrics of success need not be strictly quantitative, he replied, his tone solidifying. Imagine traditional KPIs supplemented with qualitative feedback. Let us include pulse surveys asking not just what but how. We can measure emotional well-being and its correlation to productivity. This dual structure could be our bridge between feeling and function. The board's attention shifted, curiosity etched on their faces. They wanted to be part of this transformative discussion. The dialogues that followed blended pragmatism with idealism, sketching the outline where individuality and communal purpose intersected. However, the conversation also stirred unease within him. Doubts tangled with enthusiasm. Would they truly embrace this shift? Or was he simply pandering to the board's emotional ear while neglecting underlying cynicism? He would have to navigate these treacherous waters carefully, walking a tightrope strung between aspiration and skepticism. Amidst the discussions, Jack felt the revelation breaching deeper locations within himself. He had spent too long hiding within the confines of the practical, fearing exposure. Yet, the exchange of ideas sparked an awakening. Perhaps this was his moment to let go of stale expectations, accept vulnerability as a compass for leadership, and truly connect. As his thoughts aligned, a moment of boldness shattered the remaining uncertainty in his chest, a recognition that the outcome hinged not just on the board's decision, but on his willingness to step fully into this role of connection and vulnerability. Jack realized he was capable of leading not only with strategy but with authenticity, inviting others to engage in shared discovery. But just when the air felt lighter, the board chair laid a heavy proposition at Jack's feet. We need a timeline, Jack. When can we expect the first signs of this transformation? The weight of her request fell onto him like an anvil, and he glanced around the room, each face an embodiment of potential and pressure. What would he propose? Could he articulate a timeline without sacrificing the integrity of the process? Shifting, he pulled in a deep breath, bracing himself. The path ahead needed to be clear, yet fluid enough to embrace unforeseen challenges. Jack had discovered a glimpse of what true leadership meant, a dance of responsibility intertwined with the very essence of humanity. But could he articulate that clarity amidst the uncertainty swirling around him, transforming fear into action? In that moment, he realized his next steps would define who he became, not just as a leader but as an individual committed to change. The board awaited his response, an echo of profound potential lingering in the air. Would he capture the essence of this pivotal moment, or would the weight of expectation pull him from the precipice of transformation? The answer loomed ahead, hovering ever so close. In the weeks following the pivotal board meeting, Jack Thompson embarked on a transformative journey, rooted in both personal and professional growth. With the board's guarded support, he initiated a pilot program designed to assess and enhance workplace culture. It was not merely a project, it was his commitment to foster genuine connections among employees, aligning their collective purpose with the company's goals. Jack embraced vulnerability, infusing authentic engagement into his leadership style. Each day, he encouraged open discussions, promoting a space where team members felt valued and heard. The collaboration sparked innovation. Ideas blossomed not from mandated brainstorming sessions but organically, fueled by a newfound sense of ownership among his team. Early results from the pilot program illuminated a profound shift. Employee satisfaction scores surged, teamwork flourished, and engagement metrics climbed steadily. Jack found himself invigorated. He wasn't just witnessing numbers change, he was experiencing the very heartbeat of his company. In meetings, he'd share not only statistics but also anecdotes that reflected the human element, tales of struggles, victories, and shared victories. Those conversations transformed the company's culture. Several employees, inspired by Jack's openness, began initiating cross-department collaborations, each proposing mini-projects aimed at connecting departments that traditionally operated in silos. They began championing their responsibilities as shared burdens to celebrate together. Jack's office echoed with laughter instead of the usual hushed tones of a business environment. The air became electric with camaraderie. Jack watched this evolution unfold, deeply satisfied by the palpable change. He had begun to find a balance, achieving professional goals without sacrificing his humanity. The mounting pressure from investors to prioritize financial gain diminished, replaced by a recognition of this new cultural trajectory. Profits were no longer their sole compass. Engagement and workplace happiness had emerged as key performance indicators. One fateful afternoon, Jack found himself in a meeting room with Emma, the little girl whose innocent invitation had sparked this transformative journey. Now a summer intern, her excitement had become infectious among the team. "I learned a ton from you, Jack," she said, her joyful demeanor radiating warmth. "Thank you for letting us be involved." Those words sliced through Jack. He had come full circle from a solitary figure in a glass tower to a cohesive leader empowering others, embodying the very essence of innovative leadership. He realized his responsibility extended beyond the boardroom. It encompassed the lives impacted by his decisions. But the genuine triumph came when a major industry recognition followed. The company was awarded the Most Innovative Workplace in their sector, a concrete affirmation of their cultural metamorphosis. Jack observed as his team celebrated, each individual radiating joy their hard work embraced, their values recognized. In the months that followed, the success continued. The company received accolades, recruitment skyrocketed, and retention became a hallmark of their new culture. Jack's heart swelled with pride, not for the accolades or profit margins, but for how they had collectively fostered an environment that celebrated connection. As Jack sat in his office, reflecting upon the remarkable trajectory he had taken, he understood the profound significance of embracing his humanity amidst the corporate grind. The solitude that once consumed him was now replaced by mutual support and vibrancy, a life rich in purpose. Real success, he mused, isn't about being at the top, it's about thriving together, shoulder to shoulder. With an established position as a thought leader in the industry, Jack dedicated himself to mentoring others, ensuring that the legacy of connection would endure long after him. He had conquered the ghosts of isolation. In its place, he achieved a profound sense of belonging and personal fulfillment, dynamically intertwined with his professional aspirations. Jack Thompson, once a solitary CEO, had transformed into a champion of authentic connection and innovative growth, and he now stood ready to continue shaping the future, both for himself and for others. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment below your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories know the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.